Hello everybody, welcome back. When we practice guitar technique, our goals will hopefully progress as we do as guitar players. So if you're a beginner, it might be just enough to get your fingers to do what you want them to do. And then maybe you'll start worrying about speed, which is kind of a big one, and coordination, and maybe cleanliness of sound. And hopefully you'll move on to more subtle things, such as intonation and timing, of course, which is all important. And as you progress, it becomes harder and harder to find something to work on. And that's probably when you can realize that you got to the end of the line with that specific exercise. It doesn't mean your technique is great or perfect. It just means that that exercise has given you all that it could. And so it becomes very important to find new challenges. Just a couple of weeks ago, I'll link it up here, I made a video where I show you how you can take a simple exercise and explode it into dozens of other exercises. But today we'll keep it even simpler, and I'll show you something I did years ago that surprised me by how simple it was and how dumb I was for not thinking of that, but how much extra progress it allowed me to make. So you can take this as it is. It's a great actually little exercise, but also you can just use the idea to come up with your own. So one thing, if you follow the channel for any length of time, you'll know that I use often, especially when I teach scales, is sequences. I find it useful, of course, to practice scales from bottom to top and back like everybody else. This is certainly part of practice, especially for beginners, but then I like to break things into little chunks. For example, groups of 4 notes. It could be groups of 3, or even 5, or 6 or 7, whatever it is, you can harmonize in intervals. It's very important, and besides really cementing that knowledge of the scale, it also helps you recognize and come up with melodic phrases, because a lot of this stuff you'll find in melodies all over. And so let's use 4 notes sequences. This is what I would usually practice. I would go up with sequences of 4 notes. Diligently get up to the top of the scale, and then I will do the same thing on the way down. So I will play the first 4 notes and do the same thing, descending groups of 4s. And I practice for months or maybe even years like that, because there's tons of scales, there's tons of keys, tons of positions, and I would do it with everything all the time. And then I switched to groups of 3 and so on. And it was, of course, very useful. But at a certain point, I noticed that the struggle was gone. I had this movement down so well that I basically played mindlessly. And this is one big mistake that I see with students. They get to a point where they just bypass the brain. And you don't play with your fingers, you play with your head. And therefore, your head, if you're trying to improve, should always be at the edge of the cliff. It should always be present, it should always be sharp. I came up with this little thing that I want to show you, and I'll demonstrate it for you. But basically what I did, when I got to the top of the scale, instead of moving downward like I used to, I just switched it up and moved downwards with an upward sequence, like this. I'm playing still ascending groups of 4s, but descending with each new note. And it sounds stupid and it sounds basic, but it drove me nuts in the beginning. So I'll demonstrate it for you now, and then we'll get back to it and talk a bit more about other variations. So here it goes. Okay, and I know when you see me play, it looks very simple and easy, and you say, yeah, that's not a big deal. But try this in every position, try it with different scales, right? This is just a simple major scale. How about pentatonic scales and harmonic minor, melodic minor, their modes? It gets out of hand pretty quickly. And your brain on one side is just used to going up and then down, and on the other it has to deal with this variation. I'm going to show you another little trick you can use, and so with these 2 examples you're free to do a lot better than I do. But usually when I played it the old-fashioned way, as I said, I would go up with the ascending groups, and then from the top to the bottom I would go with descending groups. Now, the cheekiest of you might have thought, hey, how about doing it all downwards even when I'm ascending the scale? And that's another thing you can do. So you can take the sequence that you would normally use for a descending scale, so the top 4 notes, and the following 4, right? This is the movement. You take 4 descending notes. But when you get to the bottom, you keep the descending groups of 4 as you go up the scale. And so on. It's quite tricky. And as I said, if you try different scales and different fingerings, it's really nuts sometimes. So I hope you like this, and if you want more exercises and more stuff to work on, do check out my books on alternate picking and legato. They're very affordable, filled with exercises and explanations. If you like to help me make more of these videos or just simply connect a bit more with me, there's a Patreon below. But no matter what you do, I'm always here. You can ask questions in the comments. You can let me know what your needs and what your troubles are. And to the best of my very limited abilities, I'll try to help you out. I look forward to seeing you very soon, and take care.